So in the beginning, we have discussed this process of controlling the mind and controlling the self. And why we are spending so much time on this is because this is so crucial. This is so critical for the overall the process of yoga, which is described in the Gita. So there are many other aspects we are going to deal with, like leadership, like interpersonal relationship, like the principle of karma, and how do we really work enthusiastically after our goals, how do we pursue our goals without really getting too anxious or stressed about it. So there are many things that we are going to cover one after another. But initial few lectures, why we are spending so much time on this process of self-control, mind control, because this is very core. This is a very first and important principle of. So we are going to go further in this direction. We have already taken a lot of work which are basically linked to this concept of self-control and mind control. So today we are going to go a little further and try to first of all look at a couple of verses which are talking about why it is important. So through some more examples, we'll try to see why it is so important, and if we don't do it, what can be the consequences. And following that, we will try to look at some techniques which are given. And of course, Gita has multiple techniques. So today we will try to look into some techniques related to meditation, the process of meditation or dhyana yoga, which is given in the Gita, how to become observers of mind. So again, there is nothing special. There is nothing very difficult about it. Very simple processes, steps are given, and I will try to just go through them and explain one by one what is the procedure given. And by no means this is the only way. Of course, Gita recommends several other ways also. So today, probably because we are dealing with the concept of mind control, self-control, so we'll try to look into the related techniques that are also given. And those techniques are mostly present in the sixth chapter. The sixth chapter is called Atma Sanyam Yoga, and we'll be taking some verses from there and trying to see what is the method given. And again, I'm skipping intermediate content like the third chapter, fourth chapter, fifth chapter. There we have taken some verses, but these chapters, third, fourth, fifth, they deal mostly with karma yoga. So they have the concept of karma, and they try to describe the best way of doing karma. What is the best way of doing karma in a selfless way without getting too attached to the result? So there are a lot of very interesting verses in these chapters also, but we will get back to them after we finish this concept of dhyana yoga and meditation and mind control. We will get back to the verses related to karma yoga and then try to relate them with our practical experiences. So let us first try to deal with the principle, the process of dhyana yoga that is given. So last time we have discussed, yesterday we have discussed, let me go up. So yesterday we have discussed these couple of verses, twice example, which is also very important. So we discussed this one in detail and try to relate with our own experiences. And following that, there are a couple of more verses over here that look into. So here you can see there are two verses given. We have looked into the verses over here. Indriyani Prani Ahur, we have looked into that. And beyond that, we have looked into as well, Rag Dvesha Vimuktesu. So this is also something we have covered. Two more verses which are basically related to our practical experience. These are very interesting verses from the second chapter, which are the process of mind, how the mind overpowers us. If we don't bring it under our control, how can the mind basically overpowers us and makes us do wrong kind of things. So these two verses, the first one is Dhyayato Vishayans Punsa Sangas Teso Vijayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. So Dhyayato means by contemplating or by thinking about. Vishayans means objects of senses. So Dhyayato Vishayans means thinking about the objects of senses, sense objects. So yesterday we discussed what is the concept of sense object. All the senses have their sense object. For tongue, tasty food is the sense object. For eyes, a beautiful scene, beautiful form, anything which attracts, any vision which attracts our attention, that is the object for eye. Likewise, all the sense organs have their uh, sense objects. So, likewise, our emotion, thoughts, they are also linked to the mind. Mind is also like a sense. It is a basically subtle sense organ, or I can say it should not be called an organ, but it's a faculty, sense faculty. So, mind is the boss of all other physical senses. It is a central point. So, in itself is also basically a repository of all kinds of thoughts, desires, etc. Emotions, feelings, thoughts, desires, all these things keep running in the mind. And therefore, the mind is also like a sensory faculty. Even without the other faculties acting, the mind can act. Mind can think, mind can imagine, mind can pursue a goal, mind can basically keep chasing a particular goal. So mind can be always active, even without the activity of other organs. Like when we are dreaming, for example. So in sleep, when we are dreaming, none of the body parts are active. They are all basically senses are not active. But the mind can still go towards the objects that we desire, right? So it can still start chasing the objects that we desire. So the mind is always active. So therefore, mind is also like a sense perception unit or a sensory faculty. So now, so here it says that whatever if we are basically contemplating about any sense object, whether gross or subtle, we get attached to that. So, like for example, if we have a favorite food item and we keep thinking about it all the time, we get attached to it. We get basically accustomed to it. We are not able to withdraw from it. So, if you have some favorite food item and if you're all the time thinking about it, you will end up going and eating it all the time. So suppose you are sitting at the home in lockdown, we are sitting at the home, and we have some favorite food item which is kept in kitchen. So things are easily accessible to us, and therefore, if we have some favorite food items, suppose we have some cookies or some cake or something which is a very favorite, something which we like very much. It is kept somewhere in the kitchen, and our mind dwells on it. We say that, okay, we always remember that, okay, this is the food which is kept in that place, it is kept in that shelf, and it is really delicious. This is something which is very satisfying to me. So if I keep thinking about it, I will get it. My mind will always go towards it, and I will get basically I will try to acquire it all the time. So the next step is dhayato vishayans punsas sangas teshuvajayate. By contemplating on the self object, we develop attachment to it. That is the first step. We get attached to it, and then from attachment, desire arises. So once we are focusing on it, there is a mental attachment to a particular object. Then the desire to acquire that also arises in the mind. So sangat sanjayate kamaha means from the attachment, desire arises, and kamat krodho vijayate. From desire, anger is born. So if the desire is not fulfilled because of any reason, we can get angry about it also. So the anger, the main reason why we get angry is because there is some desire which is not fulfilled. So if a desire is fulfilled, it leads to some other circumstances. It leads to further infatuation, attachment. It strengthens our desire further. But in case the desire is obstructed, it leads to anger. And there can be many examples, right? So, suppose I was too attached to that cookie, and somebody else, my younger brother, ate all those. Nothing is left. Therefore, I will feel some anger. I mean, so this is all gone, and I was really, I was so much interested in this cookie, and it is all over. So, therefore, this is just a small example, but there can be very big examples also where anger can be born because desire is not fulfilled. For instance, somebody who insults us and makes us angry, somebody who does not respect us and we get angry about it, there, how do we apply this? How do we really apply this verse over there? Does it apply to that circumstance? So anybody can, explain that scenario with this particular verse. So if somebody is insulting us, or somebody is showing disrespect towards us, that generates anger within us. So how this verse applies over there? Anybody would like to describe? Anyone? So I've given you example, a very simple example of a cookie, and so I was really interested in having a cookie, and that is lying in the kitchen shelf. I am thinking about it. I am getting attached to it. I get desire to eat it very frequently. Every now and then I get up and try to eat it, but all of a sudden I see that okay, because of somebody has eaten it all up, or distributed it to someone. It is all over all of a sudden, and therefore that desire of eating it got hampered. I could not fulfill my desire. Therefore, there will be some dissatisfaction or anger. This is a very mild example. That will be a mild anger. It is not really going to hurt us so much, and we are not going to be so drastic about it. A practical person will not be so drastic, but we can have drastic examples also, very, very drastic examples, which lead us to do something very, very dangerous. So here I am just giving another example, a slightly more difficult example, where the sense of insult, sense of pride, sense of respect is involved. So if somebody is not respecting us, is not basically showing due respect to us, and we may feel offended or we may feel angry. So how does this verse apply over there? Anybody would like to speak? Yeah, so Aishwarya, Aditya, they are saying that we are expecting, in that scenario, we are expecting respect. Right? So we are desiring for respect. So Aditya also has similar response. So both of them are saying that we are expecting something, we are desiring something, we are keen to get something from that person, like admiration, respect, honor, but that is not getting fulfilled. All of a sudden, that person is not showing that respect. Therefore, the starting point was that we are contemplating on certain things, we are planning this way, that way, so that we get some respect. Right? We may be imagining, oh, when I go to this particular function, people will be saying good things about me. That person will be appreciating me. I have helped him in past, so therefore I should get some good words from him, and he should be praising me. So I'm already contemplating on some things in my mind. Already there are desires or there are expectations that if I am going there, people should admire me, people should respect me. So there is some expectations over there. So Dhyato Vishayan, in this case, what is the person contemplating upon? He is contemplating upon satisfying his sense of ego or sense of emotions, etc., with other people. So he expects that other people will be gratifying his ego or gratifying his mind, his emotions, by saying good things about him. And therefore he's getting attached to that feeling that okay, these are good people, they have invited me, let me go, and therefore I'm expecting that there I will get good things and I'll get to hear good things about me. But what happens actually is this getting insulted, maybe because of some reason. Somebody says some bad things or cracks a joke or makes fun of him because of any reason, maybe. Now therefore that desire is getting basically hampered. He's not able to fulfill that desire, and therefore now he will be angry about it. Internally, he will be very agitated about it. So starting point was there is a desire. We are planning that, okay, we are thinking, we are imagining, we are having this aspiration, we are having this, it should be appreciated. But now that is not fulfilled, therefore I'm getting angry. So this is one example. Likewise, there can be, many other examples. For example, somebody is trying to say compete, right? There is a game, and in a game there are people who are playing cricket, and there are young kids to win the prize, or maybe the desire to win, basically to make the team win. And now the whole team is focusing on that desire, or the captain is focusing on the desire that okay, hey, we should win, everybody is watching us, we should win. And they don't want to get defeated, because then they have some respect issue. Now if the desire is not fulfilled, definitely people are getting either depressed, some people may be getting angry about it. So the desire is there, we attach to the desire that we have to win. If we don't win, then there is a problem. So they are not ready to accept the fact that both the things may happen. So they are not focusing on doing their best, but they are more worried about just winning somehow. So they are maybe may cheat about it, they may do anything, but somehow by hook or crook they have to win. If they don't win, there is anger. So many circumstances this thing happens. If we are desiring something but that doesn't get fulfilled, we are getting angry about it, and we may end up doing wrong things. There may be a fight in the cricket match at the end of it. Likewise, there can be many scenarios. Next verse is about.
There is another scenario when we work in a very respectable position in an organization, and then we get retired, and then we find that we do not have any value of our words after the retirement, and we whenever we face people of the same people may not be getting the similar effects which we were getting earlier. How to address may not be to generate big anger, but it certainly feels bad about it, and how to address those issues at that time.
Yeah, so this is again happening because we are expecting certain things from outside people. We have to understand that having self-interest. So they are maybe in their own world, they are having their own desires, their mind themselves are disturbed by hundreds of things. So we should not basically try to have additional desires and expectations from them. Let them deal with their own mind. Right now they are having their own complex minds. Let them deal with that. We have our own task. Let us first of all control ourselves. Let us elevate ourselves. Let us have good control on our own mind and desires, so that first of all we are stable. So the moment we start thinking about external factors and try to make them source of our pleasure and satisfaction, that becomes a problem, because external factors are never under our control. They keep changing. Change of the external circumstances, external factors is the rule of the nature. It's always changing. Same person, same relative, same friend, their behavior may change over the time. Our own closest relative, their behavior may also change over time. So these things always keep changing, and we have to be ready for that. So we have seen that the biggest change is death, and we have to be even ready for that. Krishna starts the Gita with that the change is inevitable. You have to tolerate it. Just like summer, winter, seasons keep changing. Likewise, the pleasure and pain, these things keep coming. The external factors keep changing. So we should not start having expectations from anything external to us, or we should not try to make external factors sources of our pleasure. The moment we do that, then we are developing attachment to that. Okay, this person should meet me all the time. They should greet me. He should visit me. He should basically pay respect to me. He should talk to me. He should entertain me. All kinds of things will come. So we are expecting too much from other people. That okay means people should deal with me in this way, that way. So we have to understand that they are independent people. They have their own mind. They have their own problems. So we should, basically leave them alone with. We should towards other, definitely means from our side. If there is a circumstance that okay we are getting a chance to greet someone, or getting a chance to help someone, getting a chance to say some good words or appreciate someone, we should always do that from our side. So that will definitely put us in a positive scenario, but we should not expect anything in return. Means we are trying to be good towards other. We are trying to give whenever we are interfacing with external world, or whenever we are interfacing with people outside, or any object outside, we try to give our best. We put our best foot forward, but we don't put our desires on external things. We don't put our expectations on external things. The moment we do that, we are in trouble. We are inviting sorrow, we are inviting depression, we are inviting stress, because those things are not in our control. So the only thing that is in our control is our action, our thought, our words, our behavior, our response. Therefore, this is the only strategy. Rather than expecting certain things, rather than putting our desires, just serve others. Try to be good towards others. Try to give whatever we can give to others in a good way, without expecting any good thing from other people. They may even make fun of us. They may even ridicule us on our back. They may say that okay, this person is just wasting time doing nothing. They may say a lot of things because they don't understand many things. So they have their own problem, their own mind, their own thought process, and they also have agitated like each one of us. So we should not worry so much about external factors. Just focus on our own self. Try to be self-controlled, self-restrained. Try to focus on elevating our own self, elevating our own consciousness, becoming controllers of mind, and then we will be able to see that okay, there is a much higher happiness which comes to that stability. That is also described in this in this chapter, in the sixth chapter. We'll be discussing that.
Okay.
So the next verse that I have given here is भवति सम्मोहात् सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिविभ्रमशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. So क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः. Sammoha means illusion, bewilderment. Somebody is getting bewildered, is not basically able to decide what is a good action, what is bad action, is getting deluded completely. So the decision-making power of doing what is right, what is wrong, that is getting lost. That is what is meant by samoha. You are getting delusion. You are getting basically uncontrolled. So when somebody is getting angry, if the anger reaches a certain limit, we go out of control. We may end up saying a lot of nonsense. We may end up doing something very wrong or dangerous. So that's why it is said, krodhar bhavati sammoha. We lose the discriminatory power of judging what is right action, what is wrong action, what should be done, what should not be done. So we lose that path. That's why it is called krodhar bhavati sammoha. And then the next, sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Sammohat, once we are bewildered, once we are disturbed and agitated in the mind, once we are under delusion, complete delusion, then there is smriti vibhramaha. Smriti means, again, memory, intelligence. So all the good instructions, the good principles that we have in our mind, our personality, we may have read Gita 100 times, we may have read Upanishads 100 times, we may have taken many seminars which talk about life skills and value education and so on. But if we lose ourselves, the moment anger overtakes us, then we lose all that good memory. All that memory will be gone. And because anger is overpowering us, so that's why it says it leads to smriti vibhramaha. All the good memory, all the good instructions, all the good things will vanish, and we will be overpowered by this sense of anger. And then smriti vibhramacha buddhi nasho. So once the memory is lost, because all the good instructions, all the good information that we have in our mind, if that is lost, then the buddhi is also gone. Because buddhi works with the help of memory, right? Intelligence works with the help of memory. So all the right instructions, right versus wrong, all the good things that we have learned, that we are storing in the memory, that is the smriti. If the smriti is gone, if that is clouded, we are not able to focus on that smriti, then intelligence also cannot work. You cannot derive the right direction from the smriti. So once the smriti is gone, buddhi is also gone. Buddhi nasho. And buddhi nashat pranashchati. Means once the intelligence is covered, once the intelligence becomes dysfunctional, then we can do anything dangerous and we can completely destroy ourselves by doing some dangerous thing. So buddhi nashat pranashchati. We can fall down and we can do something very, very wrong. That is the example given over here. So one example for this is acid attack, right? So we hear all the time all these affairs going on and so many cases of acid attack happening. We have so many news articles about it, and so many volunteers and NGOs are also working on this problem. So how does this start? So the starting point is that there is some attachment. So one person is basically getting attached to other person. So he is contemplating on that. I really want to be with that person. So therefore, he is doing meditation or contemplation on that object, on that external object, on that person. He wants to be with that person. So he is contemplating on that person all the time because he is attracted towards certain aspects of that person. Maybe attracted towards external features and appearance, maybe attracted towards other aspects of personality, maybe feelings, emotions, or one-sided maybe. So the thing is, he is attracted towards the other person. And by doing that, he's getting attached. He's creating attachment, emotional attachment, mental attachment. So he is creating a strong attachment. He wants to acquire that person because he feels that that person is a source of pleasure for him. And therefore, if that is not fulfilled, if that desire of acquiring that person or being with that person is not fulfilled, then there is anger. Kamat krodho vijayate. So, jayato vishyans punsa sangat vijayate. First, by meditating, by thinking, by contemplating again and again, there is a desire. And if that desire is not fulfilled, there is anger. And now, when there is anger, krodha bhavati sammoha. So the right discriminatory power is gone. There is anger, jealousy, how she can go to somebody else and how she can marry somebody else. I mean, so there is a lot of bewilderment coming, anger coming in the mind. And therefore, from that anger, there is complete delusion. Means that power to think about right and wrong, that is gone. Power to connect with our memory is gone. We are not able to reflect on the right kind of memory. Whatever instructions we have, whatever good things we have learned, all that is gone. And therefore, finally, what happens? There is smriti bhramashad, means all the good moral lessons that he may have learned. He may be from a very good family. He may have learned very good sanskaras. He may have read the scriptures. He may have done a lot of good education from good school, good college, whatever. But there is, under this condition, there is smriti bhramashad. He doesn't remember any of those good things. And the intelligence is completely getting diluted. And then he can end up doing a wrong thing, the disastrous thing, throwing acid on that lady. So this is also an example where the starting point is dhayato vishyans punchas. The mind starts contemplating on the vishaya. So all these are vishay of the indriya or the object of contemplation. The mind starts contemplating on any object, then there is attachment to that object. So here another example is Duryodhana. Duryodhana is contemplating on what? So how can you explain Duryodhana's example in this particular verse? Anybody would like to speak? How Duryodhana's example fits into this? Anybody would like to say, unmute yourself and speak?
He is contemplating for.
I think your voice got. He's contemplating for
the kingdom.
Yeah. Who is speaking? Could you please introduce yourself? It is Yash.
Yes, I'm Yash. The
Yeah,
second
please
is
go
student. So
Yeah, go ahead.
he is contemplating for the kingdom and like he's not allowing his brothers to rule.
Yeah. So what is so explain all the components. So here we have seen some steps. Jayato Vishayans means contemplating on the sense object, getting attachment, then not attachment not getting fulfilled. From attachment there is a desire, desire not getting fulfilled, there is anger. From anger there is delusion, delusion there is smriti bhramashad, means complete forgetfulness of good principles, dharma and dharma. He is forgetting what is dharma and dharma, and then he is losing his intelligence and then doing completely wrong things.
Yes, sir.
So this whole process, ultimately, what is Duryodhan doing? Duryodhan has attachment for the kingdom, means he has a lot of ego. He wants to be the king. He wants to snatch the right of his sons. So he's thinking all the time, how should I become the owner of this entire empire? How should I grasp whatever belongs to the Pandavas? And he's having desire, at the same time he's having hatred for the Pandavas. So contemplating on that object, he's getting attached to it, that it belongs to me, I am the rightful owner, and I should destroy anyone who tries to come in the line. So he's, by contemplating on this right from his childhood, he has generated such a strong attachment to it. So sangat teshodayate. So by contemplation, he has developed attachment, and from that attachment, because the attachment is not getting fulfilled, maybe Bhishma Pitama is not allowing that to happen. He's not able to become the sole ruler. So he has anger. He has a lot of irritation within himself, and he's trying to basically promote that anger. So krodhat bhavati sammoha, and basically because of that anger, he is not able to decide what is right, what is wrong. He doesn't have that intelligence anymore. Means he has basically lost that discriminatory power. What is right, what is wrong. So dharma versus adharma decision has been lost. and the right intelligence, the wisdom, the buddhi, that has also been lost. So buddhi nashat pranashyati, and therefore gradually he is doing activities which are leading to his own destruction, which is leading to the destruction of the whole dynasty. The entire Kuru dynasty, he is sowing seed for the destruction of, right? So that is also coming here. So Duryodhana's example also fits in this. So yesterday we have seen this, right? So this verse that we had seen yesterday, which was about this was about the Totwise example. So there also we saw that ultimately in the Totwise example also we are talking about restraining the senses, cutting off the attachment whenever required. We are able to restrain the thought process, restrain the mind from going towards external object, from focusing on the objects of the senses. Likewise, these two verses also, Indriyanam, Vicharatam. So this verse also told us that okay, the mind focuses on any sense organ or sense perception. That sense organ or that perception faculty drives us or attracts us, pulls us towards the respective sense object, and then we may start thinking about it again and again, and then we may get attached to it. And once we are attached to it, again all these things will happen. So therefore, this process has to be very clear in our mind. We have to contemplate on it again and again so that we can understand the mechanism behind it. So all these verses are telling us mechanisms that are happening with us. And therefore, before we learn the technique of meditation, yoga, try to control the mind, we should be mindful of these mechanisms that are always happening with us. We are falling prey to these mechanisms all the time. That is what we have to be careful about. So let us go to some of the techniques that are mentioned. I will quickly try to cover some of the techniques that are mentioned in the 6th chapter for this process, like how to basically control the mind and how to elevate it, how to detach ourselves from the mind, how to stop the thought processes, how to control the thought processes. So all that is described in the 6th chapter also, and very simple things, nothing very special, very logical things. So how to do that. So here I have listed some verses from the 6th chapter. These are in the beginning, and they are also telling us about the importance of mind control, why we should look at mind control. The very first verse is something again related to what we have studied the last couple of lectures, again summarizing that effect. So here, this verse is coming after the Karma Yoga chapters. The 3rd chapter, 4th chapter, 5th chapter, they talk about Karma Yoga. What is karma? What is action performed in yoga? What does it mean by being a karma yogi? By performing your actions or your duties as a yogi. So that is described in the 3rd, 4th, 5th chapter. And then this is being summarized over here. The process, the actual, the concrete. So this single verse basically summarizes this concept of Karma Yoga. We will be visiting the Karma Yoga part again, definitely. But the single verse over here is summary of Karma Yoga. What does it say? It says that Yada hi nendriyartheshu na karmastanu sajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhastadocchate. Yada hi na indriyartheshu. When, yada means when, na indriyartheshu. Here we have na indriyartheshu, means not for the sense organs or sense perception or sense gratification. Na karmas panusajjate. When the work is not performed, karmas panusajjate. Karma means the action that you are performing. Anusajjate means are situated or are happening because of that. So yada hi nendriyartheshu na karmas panusajjate. When the action that we perform are not done for our own gratification, our sense gratification. Now, gratification can be in many other ways. We can try to gratify ourselves. We can try to gratify ourselves through gross body, like we can try to gratify ourselves through the sense of taste, right? So that is also gratifying ourselves. We can try to gratify ourselves through vision. Seeing something beautiful, we are trying to make plans how to see it again and again. So we are trying to gratify ourselves through the gross senses, At the same time, we may also have tendency to gratify ourselves through subtle senses like mind, emotion. If the emotion is not getting gratified, we may feel depressed or not so happy. If we are getting some angry words from somebody or somebody is hurting our emotions, we may feel agitated. So we are always planning how to gratify our subtle faculty also. We should be emotionally gratified by others. We should be, our ego should be satisfied by others. So all the time we are planning how to basically get gratification from some source, whatever source it may be. Maybe the boss doesn't respect me, the boss is a boss in the office, but now when I go to home, I should be gratifying, means I should be able to gratify my ego, or I should be able to gratify my ego with some other juniors who are working with me. Maybe my supervisor, anyway I have to go down to him, but let me now satisfy my ego through my juniors who are working under me. So please mute yourself if you don't have any question. So like in a corporate, in an organization, we always have hierarchy, right? So we are working under some boss, and we may have some people who are junior to us who are working with under us. So in those conditions, we are still probably trying to satisfy our own ego in certain ways. We may say, okay, with these junior members who are working under me, let me try to gratify my ego through them in some way or the other. Let me try to gratify my emotions through them in some way or the other. The boss is, my superior. I can't get my ego satisfaction from there. Sometimes we get that also. Maybe the boss praises us before others, so we get very, we feel very good about it. And if sometimes he scolds us, we get very agitated. So the boss has a right? The senior has a right. He can praise us, he can appreciate, he can scold, he can reprimand. So he has the right. So sometimes we get good things, sometimes we may get bad things. If we are doing well, we may get good things more often. And then on the lower side, we have junior members who are being controlled by us, and we may try to derive pleasure out of them. That okay, this is my team, and therefore I am the boss, and therefore I have the freedom to gratify my ego through these team members. So I can, boast about my performance, my achievement, my accomplishment. Always trying to put myself first. So there, what I'm doing, I'm trying to satisfy my subtle faculties. I'm trying to satisfy my ego. I'm trying to satisfy my emotions through other people. So in all these cases, whatever action we perform, if we are performing it for gratifying our gross or subtle faculty, either satisfying our gross faculty like tongue, like eyes, like nose, or trying to gratify a subtle faculty like mind, emotion, ego. See, whenever we are talking about gross faculty, ultimately they are also giving sensations or feelings to the mind. Ultimately, mind is a pivot. Even if we are trying to gratify through gross faculty or gross body, ultimately all that feeling of pleasure, all that feeling of happiness comes in the mind. So the mind is the actual pivot. Ultimately, all the sense of pleasure that we are trying to acquire from outside, it is in the mind. So it says that doing not gratifying yourself. Nahi yada hi na indriyartheshu. When you stop doing that, when you intelligently stop doing activities for the purpose of your own gratification of your mind or gratification of your body. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi means Sarva Sankalpa means all kinds of resolution, all resolutions, all determination in that direction. Sarva Sankalpa. Sankalpa means we are planning, we are having a plan, we are having a determination that okay, act, gratify ourselves. This is how I should act. This is how I should approach. This is how I should plan out my activities so that I acquire gratification. So if we are able to get rid of all those kind of planning, all kinds of sankalpas, all kinds of thought processes in that direction, all those desires in that direction, Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi means one who gives up, one who rejects, one who relinquishes those kind of thoughts. So Sarva Sankalpa, or giving up all those kinds of thoughts, having desires of self gratification, that person is Yoga Rudha. Yoga Rudha means one who is Yoga Arudha. Yoga Arudha means somebody who has ascended yoga, one who has already achieved perfect yoga. So that person is called Yoga Arudha Tad Uchyate. Uchyate means he is called. So very simple Sanskrit, very simple words. So once you read these verses, it becomes very easy to pronounce and repeat. So yada inendriyartheshu na karmasthuna sajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhas tad uchyate. So this is the key of yoga, the Karma Yoga. One line summary of entire Karma Yoga, which says that if you have to be a Karma Yogi, stop acting for your own gratification, for your own selfish purposes, for gratifying your mind, ego, emotions, for gratifying your body, for gratifying your senses. Stop doing that. Do it for a higher purpose. Do it at a service. That you are part of this whole, universe. You are getting resources from this universe. Even your body that you are having is a part of this universe. All the material that you have acquired in this body, you have taken it. Nothing is being done by you. Means all the bodily functions that are working within you, respiration, the circulatory system, the digestive system, all these things are just working by themselves. I mean, the nature has given us. So we are just taking things from outside, assuming that okay, we should be the enjoyers. So we should give up that tendency to basically exploit external people, circumstances, objects for our own gratification. Act for the bigger good. Act for discharging our duties in the best possible way. That is the higher way of karma. That is the higher way of doing activities, rather than always contemplating on our own selfish desires. This is the way is from this particular thing. This person should gratify me. This object should gratify me. This particular activity should gratify me. So rather than doing that, if we detach ourselves from such thoughts, such desires, then we will be actually established in the process of yoga. That is what is being mentioned. And then there are 3 verses over here. Again, very, very important, very key verses of the Gita. So what does it say? So I think there is some question over here. Yeah, no. So here again there are 3 verses. First one, I hope you can see the translation also. The first one says, Uddhariratmanam atmanam prasadayet atmaihi atmanor bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanah. So Uddharet atma natmanam. Means Uddharet means elevate. Uddhar karna means you have to elevate. Uddharet means you should elevate. Atmanam, Uddharet atman atmanam means the self should be elevated with the help of the self. That means we as our own self, as the Atma, as the individual self, we have the responsibility to elevate ourselves through our own decision, through our own determination. Natmanam avasadayet. We should not na atmanam. The second line is na atmanam avasadayet. Avasadayet means degrade. Avasad means something is getting eroded. We have seen avasad means what? It means silt, something like which is degraded and converted into silt. Avasad is a Hindi word. Avasadayet means if you're getting avasadayet means okay. So we should not degrade ourselves. The self has to be elevated. And the second line is very important. It says Atmaihi Atmano Bandhu. The self is the friend of the self. That means Atmaihi Atma. The self is Atmaihi Atmanor Bandhu. Bandhu means friend. The self is the friend of the self, and Atmaiva Ripur Atmanaha. The self is also the enemy of the self. It says that we ourselves are our own friends and we ourselves are our own enemies. This is being described further in the next verse. How is this possible? How we are our own friends and how we are our own enemies. That is described here. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaiv atmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartet atmaiva shatruvat. So it says Bandhuratmatmanastasya. The self is a friend of that person who has won over the self, who has controlled his self. Yen atmaiv atmana jitaha. By his own determination, by his own power of determination and willpower. Atmanah jitah. By his own self, he has won over the self. That means, in a way, he has won over the lower self, right? We have seen this whole hierarchy of the self, right? So the highest point is the consciousness or the Atma. That is the real self, that is the real individual, the operator, the driver. We have to always remember that analogy, that hierarchy is very, very important. If we have to understand and appreciate all these things, it is very important that we remember that hierarchy. So, yen atmaiv atmana jitaha. It means we are trying to win over our lower self. The senses, the body, the mind are our lower self. They are also part of our personality. They are also part of our self. But there is a hierarchy. They are lower self. The sense organs, the sense perception, the body, the mind, the emotions. These are our lower self. The highest self, the driver, the owner of this whole thing is the Atma. So, by the determination power of the self, the highest self, that means that by the determination and willpower of the Atma, we should be able to control the lower self. That is another interpretation. So, here, winning the self by self means winning the lower self by higher self. Winning the lower functionality, the lower aspects of ourself, which is body, mind, ego, etc., with the determination of higher self, which is the Atma or the real self. And the next line says, Bandhuratmatmanasasya yainaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrudve vartet atmaiva shatru. Anatmanah means anatmanah, the person who has not basically controlled his own atma or his own self. That is anatmanah. To shatrutve. Shatrutve means for him, the mind or the self acts like an enemy. So if we are not able to control the lower self, that lower self becomes the enemy of the self. The mind, ego, emotions, thought processes, the body functions, they become our own enemy. They will drag us towards our own destruction. That is what is written over here. So we have taken many examples like this, right? So somebody who is a drug addict or alcoholic person. So what is he doing? Means he has mind. He has tasted wine and therefore he is addicted badly, and he is trying to basically go after wine every time. So he has lost that discriminatory power. He has lost that decision-making power, that determination. That okay, this is not right thing. It is wasting my money. It is giving me bad health. It is destroying everything. So, but because he has attachment for the wine, he has developed so much attachment for the wine. Every time he contemplates, oh, this is what the taste of the wine, and in the mind he has that memory of that effect. He wants to experience that effect again. So again, he's contemplating. Mind is always contemplating on that object, which is wine, which is whiskey, and then he's basically forced to go towards it. He's forced to basically go and acquire it, and he is degrading himself. So why it is happening? He has not controlled his lower faculty of mind and body. He has not controlled his lower faculties, and therefore the lower faculties are destroying him. The lower self, mind, body, is destroying the higher self. It is dragging it down. It is degrading the Atma. It is degrading it towards lower direction. That's what the meaning is. So if you are not able to control it, the lower self will degrade the Atma. It will take it down. And the next verse over here, the last verse I will take today is, again, we could not start the techniques today. So these are again very, very important verses. If we contemplate on it, then implementing the techniques become easier. So that's why these verses are so very core, so very fundamental. If we are just able to remember these, if we are able to contemplate on this again and again, then our determination and also our practice of implementing the techniques given becomes easier. All the time we are able to implement it. So the main we should have these things in our mind. Just like for students, if we are having some very important formula, we are teaching mathematics, we are teaching electronics, teaching any algorithm, and there are some very fundamental formula. We say that this formula should be at your fingertips. If you don't have it, then you can't solve problems. You can't solve anything. So there are in all the subjects some very, very fundamental concepts, formula, etc., which should be at their fingertips. As an engineer, we always have something like that. Studying mathematics chapter, some problem. So there are some concepts and formula which has to be at your fingertips so that you can solve the problems quickly. Otherwise, you'll always be struggling. Likewise, these things that are given, these verses, these concepts that are given, these are like those fingertip concepts. You have to be having these on your fingertips. That means you have to be having this in the mind all the time. Then only you will be able to implement the techniques. So just by reading once, it doesn't work. We have to contemplate and realize what is going on, and really have this condition that they are at our fingertips. These concepts are at our fingertips. Then only we will be able to implement the technique. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. Tomorrow, if you have 2 days gap, everything will be forgotten and evaporated from the mind. Therefore, contemplation and getting these things realized by our own thinking process, that is very, very important. So last verse is again having a bit of theology, because it mentions Paramatma. So it says, Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayoh. So Jitatmana means the one who has won over the self. Jit atmanaha means one who has conquered the self. Prashantasya, Jitatmana, Prashantasya. The one who has conquered the self, he is really peaceful. He is prashant, he is peaceful, he is not agitated. Paramatma samahitaha. So that person becomes associated or linked with the Paramatma. He can approach, he has a potential to approach and associate with the Paramatma. So the self, when it is calm and once it is established in equanimity, once it has withdrawn itself from all the agitations, in that peaceful, the self associate with the supreme self. Again, this is theological verse. Now, understanding what is Paramatma and describing the aspects of Paramatma, that is going to take huge amount of time. I'm not going to do that here. But what is being said here is that if you assume that there is a Paramatma, there is a super self, all these individual selves are there, each body has Atma, they are our own individual consciousness. And beyond that, there is a Paramatma, the supreme self, who is empowering all these individual selves. So we sing all these artis, right? Tum, Puram, Paramatma and all that. So this Paramatma is referred to as the supreme self or the divine, from whose energy all these individual selves are working. So he's also situated within the self. He is also in energizing the self, the individual self. By his energy alone, the individual self or the Atma is working. So, and that supreme self is supposed to be the source of all pleasure. If you are able to get in touch with that supreme self, then we are really, devoid of all kinds of agitation. So what it says is, if you are able to do this, if you are able to conquer our mind and thoughts, then we achieve that state of equanimity and stability where we are not agitated by all the external factors. Then we are Paramatma Samahita. Then we are in touch with the Paramatma. And then it says, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkheshu. When heat, sorrow and happiness, and Manapamanayo. Manapamanayo means insult and praise, insult and honor. That is Man Apaman. So Sheet Ushna means all the external factors, up and downs. Sukh Dukh means all the sorrow and happiness. Man Apaman, that means honor and insult. All these things become equal to us. We are not agitated by these things. Up and down will come. Sometimes cold, sometimes heat, sometimes happiness, sometimes distress, sometimes insult, sometimes praise. All these things will keep coming. That is the nature of the world. World will keep throwing at us up and down, positive and negative, everything. But one who has conquered the lower self, one who has conquered the mind, emotion, thoughts, one who has conquered the body through the right intelligence, for him, he can easily surpass all these fluctuations. He is situated above all these fluctuations, and he is in touch with the Paramatma. So this is a very core verse which is given. Now we may not understand what is Paramatma immediately. For the time being, we can just assume. Some people just translate Paramatma as the self also. Okay, means you are at least at the level of the self. If we don't understand Paramatma, for the time being, we can understand that at least we are able to elevate ourselves from body and mind, and we are becoming observer and controller of body and mind. And then we are no longer agitated by all the waves, all the desires, all hundreds of things getting, cluttered in the mind. Then we attain peace and equanimity, and we are basically immune to all the ups and downs. This is what is mentioned over here. So again, we are reiterating some of the very important concepts, and these are fingertip verses that we should contemplate upon again and again. Any question before we close? Techniques will be discussed tomorrow. A lot of good techniques we'll try to discuss tomorrow. So today again I described some of the very important verses, and explaining them does take time. Any question before we end? Okay, if you don't have any question, we can end the session. I will try to, honestly speaking, I have not been able to spend a lot of time in making presentations. So whatever PPTs I get, I just prepare in a very short time. So, I have taken feedback, and some people have suggested that I should make it more interesting and try to include some more, good examples. I'm trying to do that. I will try to make the slides more interesting and include some more relevant examples through graphics, so that you enjoy the session. Right now, it is again a lot of verses only, because I really have not spent a lot of time in preparing this. I have just before coming to the session, in 15 minutes I take some verses and put it over there, and then I explain. But to make it more interesting and appealing for everyone, I will try to make it more graphic and try to take some more examples so that you can really relate to it. So right now I'm just speaking. Maybe I have to make the slides a little better. Any other question? Any question before we end? If not, then we can close. All right. So please enter the feedback, the same form. Please enter feedback. That is very helpful. So yesterday I got some very good suggestions. So we are trying to. I'll try to implement that from your side. Still, whatever suggestions you may have, please provide that in the feedback form. Yeah. So we will definitely try to take more examples. So let me try to stop recording. I'm not sure where to stop it. The meeting is in progress.